Way back in 1991, Konami created one of my favorite games of all time. Super Castlevania 4 was a Super Nintendo title that arrived shortly after the console's North American debut. It was essentially a remake of the original game, following Simon Belmont's adventure to destroy the evil Count Dracula. As a fan of the NES games, this was a natural extension of those designs, now with an even better presentation and some upgraded whip mechanics that allowed you full control over the directions you were able to attack. I fell in love with this game immediately. The beautiful orchestral soundtrack, the fantastic parallax and special effects, even the art design was truly top-notch. It upgraded the Castlevania experience for me in every way possible, and it was the game I recommended to all my Super Nintendo owning friends. I was intensely sad that my Sega Genesis did not get a port of this title, and it would be some time still before we received the excellent Castlevania Bloodlines to satiate that hunger. As if awakening from a fever dream, I recently learned that there was an indie project in development to port Super Castlevania 4 to the Sega Genesis. Could it be that I would finally get what I was desperately wanting in 1991? I got my hands on a very early demo of the work being done and decided to compare it directly to the source material. How does it look? How does it play? How does it sound? Let's find out. As you can imagine, the current build of the publicly available demo is in a very early state, but some of the first and second stages are intact, so we can compare them to the original. The Genesis game here is being called Mega Castlevania 4 to stay on brand, and these results are quite something. While much of the original game's animations are yet to be included, the basic designs of the backgrounds translate well over to the Genesis. There is the expected dithering and loss in color, but overall it looks good, and I imagine with a little tweaking, could be made much closer. As we move from the opening drawbridge, we enter the courtyard where again the same holds true. The designers have gotten the basic look and feel of the Super Nintendo game in place, and it's looking impressively close. When we move inside, it's much the same conclusion. The Genesis recreates the assets with fewer colors, but this still looks great for such an early concept. So far, I'm mainly focusing on the stage visuals, but Simon himself is looking on point as well. His walk is familiar to anyone who knows the original game. There are a few enemies that can be attacked, but some of them are just placeholders or don't have any collision at all. Moving on to the second stage, we see more work that's been done, but here it's less complete and you notice the lack of color much more. There's missing parallax, missing enemies, the stage height is all wrong, and it eventually peters out into a broken fall that doesn't allow you to continue much further. Overall, there isn't much here, but what I do see is the Genesis recreating this stuff a lot closer than you may have guessed it could, especially for such an incomplete work in progress. Let's have a look at some side-by-side comparisons. One area I was positive the Super Nintendo was going to absolutely eviscerate the Genesis version in was sound. After all, the Super Nintendo uses samples and the original game really harnessed that feature to create some incredible tunes. To say I was shocked at the quality of the sound in this demo is an understatement. I sat back in my chair and soaked this in with utter and complete satisfaction. No shit. If the person that created this stays the course of this level of quality, this port will be worth it just to play along to this incredible soundtrack. From everything I've seen so far, it's the gameplay that was hit hardest. Nothing feels right about how the Genesis demo plays. Simon's weighty jumps have a weird timing. His whip attack has extra frames of animations that throw off the feel. You can whip around in a few different directions, but you don't have the finer whip control of the Super Nintendo edition. Hitboxes with the enemies are all off as well, so all of that feels very unfinished. There are no stairs, the platforming collision is off, and it's missing a ton of enemies. Add in the incomplete state of the stages, and this demo shows that there's a lot more work to be done before it ever looks or plays anywhere near as nice as Konami's classic. I don't want that to sound like a critique. It's not. I am well aware that this is a work in progress, and this is a mere observation of what is currently available. To sum up the Mega Castlevania 4 demo, I am happy with the visuals so far, blown away by the music, and hoping the gameplay sees some major additions to feel more like the original. All in all, it's a great showing for such incomplete work, and an impressive proof of concept. If you decide to try this out, be sure to keep that in mind that it's far from complete and is missing many things from the original. Should this be completed, I expect we will still see a noticeable loss in color. I don't think that'll be a terrible thing, mostly something that diehard fans will pick apart and moan about, but otherwise, no different than any other multi-platform title that appeared on the Genesis, like the likes of Street Fighter II. I am a lot more interested in the soundtrack getting finished. The Super Nintendo music sounds right at home on FM Synth, something I never would have guessed. Tighten up that gameplay some, and this could be a winning release for the Genesis that scratches an itch many Castlevania fans have had for years. I'll put a link in the description so you can try it out for yourselves. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.